Easy now. Feel that pressure in your chest? That's not fear. That's the room realizing you're still standing while every lie around you starts to leak. You already know this thing didn't start with you. It never does. It tore through rooms before it ever reached your door. Left people hollowed out, reputations cauterized, voices shaking when your name came up in private. You watched it move like a sickness, quiet, efficient, wearing friendly faces while it fed, and you said nothing, not because you were weak, because you were watching. See, you're built wrong for their kind of evil. You don't panic when the pattern appears. You don't scream when the lights flicker. You observe, you catalog, you wait. That's the saint in you, calm, controlled, merciful. And that's exactly what hid the psychopath they never saw coming. This thing hurt everyone first because it needed practice. It needed victims to refine its technique, to learn where people fold, where they beg, where they lie to themselves just to survive the hit. It learned how to ruin gently, how to smile while it poisoned the room. And every time someone broke, it grew more confident, more careless. Then it came for you. And that's where the universe shifted. Because when it touched you, it didn't find panic. It didn't find desperation. It didn't find someone scrambling to protect an image. It found stillness. The kind that makes predators hesitate. The kind that whispers, "This one knows." You let it think you were just another stop on the route. You let it believe its usual tricks were working. You let it talk. You let it expose itself line by line, contradiction by contradiction, every threat, every slip, every borrowed narrative. It all stuck to it, like blood on white gloves. That's the angel in you, the restraint, the silence that gives people enough rope to choreograph their own collapse. But don't get it twisted. There's a demon under that calm, and it's not sloppy. See, unpredictability isn't chaos. It's discipline without disclosure. It's never showing your hand while the other side is busy live streaming theirs. It's knowing exactly when to move and choosing not to, until every secret is so swollen with pressure it starts bleeding on its own. You didn't expose this thing by attacking it. You exposed it by surviving it untouched. That's what broke the spell. Because now everyone who watched it hurt others is replaying the footage in their head. They're connecting dots they were too scared to connect before. They're realizing patterns don't lie. People do. And the moment they see that it couldn't break you, a terrifying thought hits them. What if the problem was never the victims? That's when whispers start. That's when old stories resurface with new meaning. That's when timelines don't line up and alibis feel rehearsed. That's when the blood starts seeping through the floorboards of conversations they thought were buried forever. You didn't have to accuse. You didn't have to threaten. Your existence after contact was the indictment. That's the paradox they can't survive. You're gentle, but not fragile. Empathetic, but not exploitable. Patient, but never passive. A healer who understands destruction better than the destroyer ever could. Pain didn't break you. It educated you. Every scar became data. Every betrayal sharpened your timing. Every attempt to reduce you taught you exactly how systems rot from the inside. And now they're scrambling to contain what can't be contained. Truth that arrived without raising its voice. This thing thought you'd react like everyone else. Thought you'd flinch, lash out, collapse, or beg for clarity. It didn't realize you were built to let storms reveal themselves. That's why it's quiet now. That's why people avert their eyes. That's why explanations feel rushed and memories feel selective. Because when something hurts everyone first and then fails with you, it stops being misunderstood. It becomes exposed. And the scariest part? You're not done evolving. You're not even angry. You're just awake. So stand there, calm, unpredictable, half angel, half nightmare. Let every secret keep bleeding. You don't need to touch anything else. It's already over. Stay right there. Don't rush the moment. This is the part where silence does more damage than any scream ever could. You can feel it now. The shift in how people look at you. Not admiration, not fear exactly. It's calculation. They're replaying every interaction, every word they dismissed, every instinct they ignored when this thing was hurting everyone else. They're realizing you were never late to the truth. You were early and patient enough to let it arrive on its own. That's what makes you dangerous in a way they don't have language for. See, most people survive trauma by shrinking. You didn't. You expanded inward. You learned how to hold still while chaos told on itself. You learned how predators expose their teeth when they think they're winning. You learned that evil gets sloppy the moment it thinks you're cornered. And when it came for you, it expected noise. It expected drama. It expected a performance. What it got was control. You didn't fight back the way movies taught them to expect. You didn't become hysterical, defensive, or loud. You let it move exactly the way it always moves. Fast, arrogant, convinced it had already won. And in doing so, it revealed every method it used on everyone before you. That's when the bleeding started, not from wounds, but from stories that no longer lined up, from motives that didn't make sense anymore, from people realizing the common denominator wasn't coincidence, it was intent. That's the demon side of you they never accounted for. Not rage, not vengeance, but precision. You understand something most people never do. Exposure doesn't come from attacking lies. It comes from outlasting them. And now they're stuck with a nightmare scenario. Because you didn't just survive this thing. You became the mirror it couldn't stand to look into. Every tactic it used now looks obvious in hindsight. Every misunderstanding feels rehearsed. Every justification sounds like someone reading from a script that's already been leaked. They don't hate you because you're cruel. They hate you because you're unavailable to manipulation that terrifies systems built on silence. You walk into rooms now and the air tightens, not because you're threatening, but because you're proof that the pattern fails sometimes. And once people see that failure, they can't unsee it. Pain didn't make you bitter. It made you bilingual. You speak innocence and brutality fluently. You understand mercy, and you understand exactly how far someone can go before mercy turns into permission. That's the angel standing next to the devil inside you. One hand open, one hand hidden. Both steady. And here's the part they really can't handle. You didn't expose this thing for revenge. You exposed it by being immune. No blackmail stuck. No smear took hold. No narrative could pin you down long enough to define you. You became unclassifiable. And when something that feeds on control meets something it can't label, it starts devouring itself. That's what you're watching now. Internal collapse. Quiet panic. People scrambling to distance themselves without admitting they were ever close. You're not chasing justice. You're not demanding apologies. You're letting truth do what it always does when no one interferes. It rots the masks from the inside. So let them whisper. Let them rewrite history. Let them pretend this was all coincidence. You know better. You felt it the moment it touched you and failed. The moment the threat lost its teeth. The moment you realized you were no longer prey. You were the threshold. Nothing like this survives contact with someone who refuses to break on cue. And you're done performing. Just stand there, unmoved, unreadable, alive in a way that makes lies hemorrhage. They wanted you last. They didn't realize last is where the truth starts. Good. Now don't look away. This is where it gets uncomfortable for everyone except you, because once the bleeding starts, it doesn't stop neatly. Secrets don't drip. They pour. They stain conversations, timelines, relationships that once felt solid. And people start realizing something that rattles them to the bone. This thing didn't just hurt people randomly. It selected them. That's when the fear mutates. They start asking the questions they were too afraid to ask before. Why those people? Why that pattern? Why the same emotional wreckage repeating in different rooms with different faces? And sooner or later, always sooner than they expect, the question turns toward you. Why didn't it work on you? That's the moment you become the anomaly, the outlier that breaks the math, the living proof that the damage was never inevitable. And that's when resentment creeps in. Not because you did something wrong, but because your survival exposes the lie they used to cope. They told themselves everyone breaks, everyone bends, everyone has a price. Then you walked through the same fire and didn't smell like smoke. See, you carry pain differently. You metabolized it. You didn't turn it outward or inward. You turned it sharp. Every wound became situational awareness. Every betrayal became pattern recognition. Every attempt to destabilize you quietly upgraded your internal operating system. That's why, when this thing came for you, it didn't find chaos. It found clarity. You saw the hooks before they sank in. You heard the manipulation hiding inside concern. You felt the pressure points before they were pressed. That's the psychopath part they never prepare for. The one that feels everything but refuses to react on command. You didn't give it the satisfaction of a meltdown. You didn't validate its power by collapsing. You made it overextend. And predators always expose themselves when they think the kill is guaranteed. Now the room feels different. You feel it when you enter. People speaking slower, choosing words carefully, watching your face for reactions you no longer give away. Not because you're dangerous in the obvious way, but because you're immune to narratives. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need allies screaming on your behalf. Your calm presence after everything is louder than testimony. That's what rattles them, because evil expects trauma to fracture you into something predictable, angry, broken, apologetic, desperate. You became none of those. You became opaque. And opacity terrifies those who survive by reading and exploiting others. They don't know if you'll speak. They don't know if you'll stay silent. They don't know what you've already documented, remembered, or archived behind those eyes. That uncertainty eats at them. You're not threatening exposure. You're embodying it. Every time someone watches you hold your ground without flinching, they reevaluate their loyalty to the thing that hurt everyone first. They start distancing, backpedaling, soft denying, rewriting their own involvement to sleep at night. That's how collapses actually happen, not with explosions, but with abandonment. You didn't have to destroy anything. You just stopped carrying the weight for it. And here's the quiet truth that no one says out loud. The reason this thing targeted you last is because it sensed what you were becoming. It hoped, desperately, that you'd still be unfinished, that you'd still be operating from raw pain instead of integrated power. It was wrong. You're the kind of person pain graduates, not eliminates. The kind that turns survival into strategy. The kind that doesn't seek revenge because you understand something far colder. Time always sides with the one who can wait. Now the angel and the demon inside you aren't fighting anymore. They're aligned. Mercy without blindness. Force without chaos. And that balance, that's what makes you unstoppable. So let them squirm, let them talk in circles, let them bleed secrets in fragments and pretend it's nothing. You're not chasing closure. You are the closing chapter. This thing hurt everyone first. Then it came for you. And now every lie it ever told is running out of places to hide. You didn't end it loudly. You ended it by existing exactly as you are. Stay with it. This is where the silence starts to feel heavy for them and clarifying for you. Because once a thing like that fails, it doesn't just lose power. It loses authority. And authority, once cracked, never fully heals. People start trusting their instincts again. They remember moments that didn't sit right. They replay conversations where something felt off. But they swallowed the feeling to keep the peace. You didn't swallow it. You stored it. That's the difference. You understand now that evil doesn't always look violent. Sometimes it looks helpful. Sometimes it looks charming. Sometimes it looks like it's protecting everyone while quietly deciding who gets sacrificed next. And that's why it hurts so many people first, because each one teaches it how to hide better. But when it reached you, it met resistance it couldn't name. You didn't mirror its energy. You didn't give it emotion to feed on. You didn't collapse into a role it could control. You became still in a way that stripped it naked. And now, everywhere it goes, your presence lingers like a question mark it can't erase. People don't need you to explain anything anymore. They can feel the contrast. They can sense who bleeds chaos and who survives it without spreading it. That's what evolution looks like when it's honest. You're not loud about what you know. That's what scares them most. Loud people can be dismissed as dramatic. Quiet ones who remain intact, those change the weather. Pain refined you. Not into something cruel, but into something exact. You know when to engage. You know when to disappear. You know when silence is protection and when it's a weapon. That's the saint who learned from the psychopath. That's the angel who understands the demon's math. And here's the part they never expected. You don't need validation for what you survived. You don't need the truth to be publicly acknowledged to feel real. You lived it, which means you're no longer negotiable. They can't gaslight you. They can't rush you. They can't bait you into reacting on their timeline. You operate on a different clock now, one calibrated by experience instead of hope. And that's why their secrets keep bleeding. Because secrets survive on urgency. They survive on distraction. They survive on people needing answers now. You don't. You let things unravel at the speed of inevitability. Every day you don't break character, your character. Another crack appears somewhere else. Another person pulls away. Another story changes slightly. Another explanation feels thinner than the last. You're not pushing the collapse. You're letting gravity do its job. This thing thought hurting everyone else first would soften you. Thought you'd be conditioned by the time it reached you. Thought you'd already be exhausted, self-doubting, eager to appease. Instead, it found someone who had already buried their illusions. And nothing is more dangerous than a person with nothing left to prove. So keep standing like this, balanced, unreadable, awake, not hunting, not hiding. Just present enough that lies can't breathe around you. This thing came for you thinking you'd be the final victim. It didn't realize you were the end of the line. And everything it tried to bury, it's not coming back clean. It's coming back exposed. And here's the part nobody warns them about. Once exposure starts, it doesn't need momentum anymore. It sustains itself. You've probably noticed it already. People hesitating before they speak around you. pauses that weren't there before. Eyes flicking away mid-sentence like their own thoughts just betrayed them. That's not paranoia, that's awareness catching up. Because when something that fed on chaos fails with you, the spell breaks for everyone watching. They start realizing the damage wasn't random, it wasn't bad luck, it wasn't just how things are. It was designed, and design implies responsibility. You didn't accuse anyone, you didn't need to. Your calm survival after contact did something far worse. It forced comparison. People can't help it. They line you up next to the wreckage. They notice who came out fractured and who came out clearer. That's when the fear turns inward. Because if you didn't break, then breaking wasn't inevitable. And if breaking wasn't inevitable, then a lot of excuses just died. This is where the real bleeding happens. Not from the thing itself, but from the people who enabled it. The ones who stayed quiet because it benefited them. The ones who sensed something wrong but chose comfort over conscience. They start feeling exposed without you ever looking at them. You become a mirror they can't avoid. And you didn't set out to become this. That's the irony. You just refused to abandon yourself to survive. Pain tried to rewrite you into something smaller. You let it rewrite you into something precise. You learned restraint without submission, compassion without self-betrayal, strength without spectacle. That's why your presence feels unsettling now. You don't need to dominate the room. You don't need to perform confidence. You carry it the way gravity carries weight. Quiet, absolute, unavoidable. The angel in you learned how to stop bleeding. The demon learned when to stop striking. Now they're not at war anymore. They're in agreement. And agreement is lethal. You're no longer reacting to what's happening. You're watching outcomes arrive exactly when they're supposed to. You see the desperation ramp up. The subtle smear attempts that don't quite land. The sudden kindness that feels rehearsed. The distance people create so they can later say, I was never that close. Too late. History remembers proximity. And here's what they still don't understand. You're not holding on to the past. You integrated it, which means you're not haunted by what happened. You're informed by it. That's why you don't flinch when tension rises. That's why threats feel theatrical now. That's why urgency bounces off you like static. You already survived the worst part, not knowing. Now you know exactly what you're dealing with, and exactly who you are without it. This thing thought hurting everyone first would desensitize you. Instead, it trained you to see clearly through emotional fog. It sharpened your instincts. It taught you patience as a weapon. And patience? Patience is terrifying to anything built on pressure and fear. So let them keep leaking half-truths. Let them pretend the bleeding is normal. Let them scramble to control narratives that no longer belong to them. You're not chasing justice. You're not chasing closure. You're not chasing revenge. You're standing still while everything that touched you reveals itself. And that's the final paradox they can't escape. You didn't destroy the thing that hurt everyone first. You outlived it. And now, every secret it ever buried is clawing its way to the surface. Because it made the mistake of coming for someone who doesn't disappear under pressure. It came for you last. It didn't realize last is where the truth waits. Shh. Feel that shift in the air. Yeah, that sudden silence where even the candles hesitate to burn. That's the room realizing you just stepped into the circle. You know what's funny? Real witches, old ones, disciplined ones, the kind who don't flinch at shadows or flares of power. They don't scare easy. They've stared into mirrors that bite back. They've memorized the price of every spell. They understand chaos. And yet, when your name drifts into their conversations, their voices lower, their symbols get redrawn, their protections get doubled, not because you do magic, but because you are it. And that's not normal. See, magic recognizes patterns. Rituals are repetition. Power is supposed to move in loops, obey cycles, respect rules written in blood and patience. But you don't loop. You spike. You don't chant. You arrive. You don't follow timing. You bend it until timing starts following you. That's the part that makes them nervous. You're not casting anything. You're interrupting it. You're walking proof of the paradox they warn about, but hope never manifests. The saint who learned violence without losing purity. The psychopath who still knows mercy. The angel who understands how demons think because you survived being surrounded by them. You didn't learn power in temples. You learned it in pressure. You learned it when pain stayed too long, and you had to evolve or vanish. That kind of power doesn't glow. It hunts. They feel it when you enter a space. Their tools react wrong. Their readings come back distorted. Their intuition starts contradicting itself. Because intuition is built to sense external forces, and you're not external anymore. You're internalized chaos. You're what happens when suffering doesn't break someone. It reorganizes them. You see, witches respect effort. They respect sacrifice. They respect time. But they don't know what to do with someone who paid the price without signing up, who bled without being initiated, who awakened without being invited. You didn't open a door. The door opened around you because reality couldn't hold its shape anymore. That's why they're nervous, because spells can be reversed, hexes can be cleansed, circles can be broken. But you're not an action. They can't counter you. You're a condition. You don't attack their magic. You make it question itself. You walk in and suddenly their symbols feel decorative. Their chants feel loud but hollow. And their confidence starts sweating. Not fear. Recognition. The kind that says, this thing wasn't trained. It was forged. You're unpredictable. And unpredictability is the only force magic can't rehearse against. Every system, occult or corporate, sacred or profane, depends on expectation. You don't give that luxury. You don't escalate the way enemies plan for. You don't respond the way threats are mapped. You adapt in ways that feel illegal, like you're pulling moves from a version of the future nobody else has access to. And that's where the duality sharpens, because they can't tell if you're light pretending to be dark, or dark refined into light. They can't classify whether you're a blessing that hurts, or a curse that heals. And when something can't be classified, it can't be controlled. When it can't be controlled, it becomes myth. And when it becomes myth, even witches listen. You didn't become powerful by wanting it. You became powerful by surviving it. Every loss carved another symbol into your nervous system. Every betrayal rewired your instincts. Every moment you were supposed to collapse taught you how to stand in ways that look supernatural to people who've never been tested past comfort. That's why your presence scrambles rooms. That's why conversations change when you're not even speaking. That's why people feel watched when you're calm. Calm like a loaded silence. Calm like something that already knows the outcome. You're not dangerous because you're aggressive. You're dangerous because you're aware. You see the mechanics behind behavior. You feel shifts before they happen. You read the temperature of power the way predators read weather. That's not learned in books. That's learned in hell. And hell recognized you. So when real witches get uneasy, it's not superstition, it's instinct. They sense something that doesn't need ritual to move reality. Something that doesn't need permission to change the field. Something that walks through life like a living anomaly, too grounded to be fantasy, too evolved to be coincidence. You're the kind of force they warn apprentices about in half-jokes and unfinished sentences. Not because you'll harm them, but because you remind them that power doesn't always wear robes. Sometimes it wears scars. Sometimes it speaks softly. Sometimes it doesn't speak at all and still rearranges the room. That's you. Not chosen, not summoned, not bound. Just here. And every system, mystical or mundane, can feel it. That's why they're nervous. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. The part that makes throats tighten and eyes look away when your name comes up. You didn't just survive what was meant to erase you. You absorbed it. You took pressure that crushes identities and turned it into posture. You took chaos that fractures minds and turned it into clarity. Most people go through pain and come out smaller, quieter, apologetic. You went through it and came out precise, sharper, calmer, like something that learned the math behind suffering and decided never to be confused again. That's what unsettles them, because witches understand one thing better than anyone. Energy leaves fingerprints. Trauma leaves residue. Power always costs something. And when they read you, the cost doesn't line up with the result. The exchange rate makes no sense. You should be fractured. You should be volatile. You should be desperate to prove something. Instead, you move like you already know the ending, and you're just watching everyone else catch up. That kind of composure after damage. That's not coping. That's transmutation. You didn't just turn pain into strength. You turned it into signal. Something in you broadcasts without trying. You don't chase influence. Influence drifts toward you and doesn't know why. You don't threaten. You destabilize by existing. You don't raise your voice. The room adjusts its volume for you. And here's the real paradox, the one that rattles even the most seasoned practitioners. You don't need belief. Magic feeds on belief. Systems depend on it. Faith, fear, intention, those are fuels. But you don't require buy-in. You don't need people to believe in you for you to work. You operate whether anyone's watching or not, whether anyone agrees or not, whether anyone understands or not. That independence from validation, that's terrifying to anything built on ritual. Because rituals are rehearsed. You are responsive. You don't follow scripts. You read the moment and improvise with frightening accuracy. You sense micro shifts, tone changes, energy drops, sudden hesitations, and you adjust before logic even boots up. That's why people feel exposed around you. Not because you're judging, but because you're seeing. And being seen without asking for it feels like being undressed by reality itself. They call that witchy intuition. But yours didn't come from incense and moon phases. Yours came from watching patterns repeat until you cracked them. From being lied to enough times that truth started vibrating differently in your chest. From being cornered so often that escape routes became instinctual. That kind of intuition isn't mystical, it's earned. And earned power scares trained power every time. Because trained power knows its limits. You don't. You haven't found them yet, and that's the problem. You've already crossed thresholds most people spend lifetimes circling. You've already shed versions of yourself that others still cling to for safety. You've already died socially, emotionally, spiritually. And when someone survives death without becoming bitter, without becoming reckless, without becoming loud, they become mythical. Not loud myth, quiet myth. The kind that moves through whispers and sideways glances. The kind that makes people say, I don't know what it is about them, but something's different. The kind that doesn't announce power. It warps probability around it. That's why even real witches hesitate. Because you're not bound to tradition. You're not bound to lineage. You're not bound to belief systems that tell you what you are allowed to be. You're not trying to open portals. You are one. A walking threshold between what was and what shouldn't logically exist yet. You're the angel who learned how demons negotiate. You're the demon who remembers what mercy feels like. You're the saint who understands violence without worshiping it. You're the psychopath who never lost empathy, just illusions. And that balance, that unstable equilibrium, that's where real power lives. Not in extremes, in control. You don't lash out. You don't rush. You don't need to dominate. You wait. You observe. You let people reveal themselves because time works for you now. And time, oh, time can feel that. Time behaves differently around people who've already endured more than it could throw. You're not here to burn the world. You're here to outgrow it. And growth like yours doesn't ask permission. It makes systems obsolete. It makes rules feel decorative. It makes hierarchies feel fragile. It makes people with titles nervous and people with intuition quiet. That's why the candles flicker when you enter. That's why conversations stall. That's why even those who work with unseen forces pause and recalibrate. Because something about you doesn't feel summoned. It feels inevitable. And inevitability is the one thing no spell can stop. And inevitability doesn't rush. It doesn't flex. It doesn't announce itself with thunder and theatrics. It settles in quietly, like gravity deciding it's done negotiating. That's the energy you carry now. Heavy, calm, non-reactive. The kind that doesn't need to prove it can crush, because everything around it already knows. That's why people start acting strange around you. They over-explain. They confess things you never asked about. They test you with little power plays that collapse the second they leave their mouth. They feel something slipping, and they don't know what it is. So their nervous system starts talking for them. You're not intimidating in the loud way. You're intimidating in the mirror way. You force people to feel themselves. Witches know that feeling. That moment when the energy turns back on the sender. When intention boomerangs. When the spellcaster realizes the field is no longer theirs. That's what happens in your presence. You don't push back. You reflect. And reflection is brutal to anyone hiding from their own shadow. You've become the kind of being that exposes imbalance without effort. Your silence weighs more than other people's threats. Your stillness interrupts momentum. Your restraint reads like confidence so complete it doesn't need to move. That unnerves anyone who relies on theatrics, whether they call it magic, authority, charisma, or control. Here's the thing they're really sensing, even if they can't articulate it. You're no longer operating from desire. Desire is loud. Desire leaks. Desire reaches. Most people are powered by want. Want for recognition, safety, revenge, validation, love. That makes them predictable. That makes them readable. That makes them manageable. You burn through that stage. Want got exhausted in you. Pain took it apart piece by piece until what remained wasn't hunger, but direction. You don't want anymore. You move. And movement without craving is terrifying because it can't be baited. You can't be bribed into reactions. You can't be provoked into missteps. You don't flinch when outcomes change because you've already survived worse than disappointment. You've already adapted to loss at a cellular level. That's why even practiced manipulators miscalculate you. They look for wounds to press. You've already integrated them. They look for fear to amplify. You've already metabolized it. They look for ego to poke. You outgrew it when ego stopped keeping you alive. You don't glow with innocence. You glow with integration. Light and dark, braided so tightly they can't be separated anymore. That's why you don't feel holy and you don't feel cursed. You feel complete. And completeness is rare. Completeness makes systems nervous because it doesn't need them. Witches spend lifetimes trying to balance themselves. Shadow work, light work, alignment, grounding, protection. You did all of that the hard way, by being thrown into imbalance so violently that your psyche had no choice but to reassemble itself into something stable under pressure. You didn't seek enlightenment. You survived toward it. That difference matters, because seekers still doubt. Survivors know. You know what you're capable of now, not in theory, not in fantasy, not in ego, but in lived data. You've seen what happens when you're cornered. You've seen how your mind sharpens under stress instead of fracturing. You've watched yourself make decisions in chaos that others couldn't make in calm. That knowledge settles into you like a quiet crown. And crowns don't sparkle, they weigh. That weight is what people feel. That weight is what disturbs the air when you enter. That weight is why even those who traffic in unseen forces feel something ancient stir and go still. Not because you're a threat, but because you're unaligned with their expectations. You're not ascending the way they were taught. You're not awakening on schedule. You're not obeying the mythology. You're rewriting it by existing past the breaking point. And deep down, the old ones know this truth. The most powerful force isn't the one that knows the most spells. It's the one that can't be psychologically displaced. The one whose center doesn't wobble when reality applies pressure. The one who doesn't need to dominate the field because the field reorganizes around them naturally. That's you now. You're not here to conquer belief systems. You're here to outgrow them. You don't threaten magic. You remind it where it came from. And that's why the real ones go quiet when you're near. That's why their instincts tell them to observe, not engage. That's why their intuition says, this isn't something to test, because you're no longer becoming. You've arrived at that dangerous, sacred point where evolution stops asking questions and starts moving forward anyway. And once you cross that point, once evolution stops asking permission and starts acting, you stop fitting into stories that were written for smaller versions of you. That's when the tension starts. Not outside, inside other people, inside systems, inside traditions that depend on predictability to survive. You can feel it, can't you? That strange lag between your movement and the world's response. Like reality needs a second to recalculate after you make a decision. Like probability pauses, squints, and then reshuffles its deck. That's not arrogance. That's not imagination. That's what happens when someone stops moving from fear and starts moving from knowing. You know now, not everything, but enough. Enough to trust your timing. Enough to let silence work for you. Enough to walk away from things that once would have consumed you. That's another reason they're nervous. You don't cling. Powerful people cling. So do fragile ones. They cling to roles, titles, identities, labels, rituals, alliances. You let things fall off. You shed skins without ceremony. You leave rooms without announcing it. You don't need closure because you already closed the loop internally. That kind of detachment doesn't read as cold. It reads as dangerously free. Freedom terrifies anything built on contracts, spoken or unspoken. Magic has contracts. Society has contracts. Relationships have contracts. You've learned how to honor what matters without being owned by it. You can love without surrendering your center. You can engage without dissolving. You can care without being controllable. That balance, that's not taught. That's survived into. You've become someone who doesn't need to dominate the dark because you're no longer afraid of it. You don't need to chase the light because you've already carried it through hell. So you stand in that in-between space, calm, alert, self-possessed, and everything that relies on extremes starts malfunctioning around you. People don't know how to handle someone who won't escalate. You don't react when they expect fear. You don't flinch when they expect submission. You don't perform when they expect proof. You just remain. And remaining is a power move when the world is addicted to noise. Witches sense that too. They know the difference between someone channeling power and someone anchoring it. Channeling is loud. Anchoring is quiet. Channeling burns out. Anchoring reshapes environments. You're not pulling from somewhere else. You're stabilizing something rare inside yourself. That's why even chaos feels organized around you now. Not controlled, organized. You don't force outcomes. You position yourself so outcomes come to you already weakened, already leaning in your favor. You've learned patience not as passivity, but as leverage. You let time reveal intentions. You let people show their hands. You let systems overextend themselves, trying to account for you. And they always overextend, because you don't match the data they have. You're not the person you were when they first assessed you. You're not operating from the same wounds, the same needs, the same blind spots. Anyone still using old maps to predict you is already lost. And the moment they realize that, the moment they sense the gap between who you were and who you are now, that's when the nervousness kicks in. That's when instincts whisper, this one slipped the net. You didn't just heal, you integrated. Healing returns you to baseline. Integration creates a new one, a stronger one, a quieter one. One that doesn't collapse under contradiction. One that can hold rage without leaking it. One that can hold compassion without bleeding out. You can sit with darkness without romanticizing it. You can sit with light without becoming naive. That's mastery, not mystical mastery, psychological mastery. And psychology underpins everything: belief, fear, authority, influence, magic. All of it flows through the mind before it touches the world. You rebuilt yours from the inside out. So when they sense you, what they're really sensing is this: you're no longer governable by the usual levers. Shame doesn't work. Fear doesn't work. Praise doesn't work. Threats don't work. You've seen behind those curtains. You felt those hooks. They don't catch anymore. And anything that can't hook you can't steer you. That's why your presence feels disruptive without being aggressive. You don't attack structures. You expose their fragility by not needing them. You don't challenge belief systems. You outgrow them and keep moving. You don't fight the current. You change depth. That's what makes you anomalous. Not special, not chosen, not elevated, uncontainable. And deep down, the real ones know, when something like you appears, it's not here to destroy the world. It's here to signal that the world is already changing, and some things won't survive the update. You're not the storm. You're the pressure shift before it. And once you feel that in your bones, you stop explaining yourself. You stop seeking permission. You stop asking whether it's okay to take up space. You just do. Calm, alert, unapologetic. Let them be nervous. That instinct is working exactly as intended. Easy now. Don't flinch. Yeah. You feel that burn in your chest? That metallic taste? Good. That's how you know this is real. You drank the poison they handed you with a smile. Not by accident, not because you were weak, but because you were cornered, starving, and tired of pretending you didn't see what they were doing. They called it help. They called it love. They called it concern. But you felt it. Every drop laced with intent. Every word designed to corrode you slowly, quietly, so nobody could ever point to the moment you broke. And here's the part that terrifies them. You didn't spit it out. You swallowed it. You let it burn all the way down. You let it hit your bloodstream. You let it try to rewrite you. And it failed. See, they thought poison only works one way. They thought pain only destroys. They thought betrayal only weakens. That's how their bloodline survived for generations. Same tricks, same venom, passed down like heirlooms. Whisper campaigns, silent sabotage, smiles with knives behind them. They've been feeding that same toxin to everyone who ever got too bright, too strange, too dangerous to control. And it worked. On everyone else. But not on you. Because something inside you doesn't dissolve. It adapts. Something inside you doesn't beg for mercy. It studies the blade. You didn't just survive the poison. Your system analyzed it, cataloged it, learned its signature. You felt the nausea, the paranoia, the nights where your thoughts turned on you like trained dogs. You questioned yourself. You almost apologized for things you never did. Almost shrank. Almost broke. Almost. But here's the paradox they never see coming. The same dose that kills the innocent for good forges immunity in the rare. You didn't come out cleaner. You came out different. Darker in the right places. Sharper where it counts. You learned how lies sound before they're spoken. You learned how manipulation feels before it touches the skin. You learned the rhythm of their cruelty so well you could hum along. And now their poison doesn't sting anymore. They try the old tactics and you don't react. That's what scares them first. No anger, no pleading, no explanation, just that calm, that stillness, that look in your eyes that says, I've seen this movie already. They escalate. They get louder, more desperate. Because when a bloodline realizes its signature weapon no longer works, panic sets in. Their ancestors built empires on that toxin. Their parents perfected it. And now it hits you like water. You're not healed. You're upgraded. There's a difference. Healing closes wounds. Immunity turns wounds into armor. You don't flinch at disrespect anymore because you know what comes next. You don't chase validation because you've tasted rejection at its purest. You don't fear abandonment because you've already been left bleeding by people who swore they'd never do that to you. You met the demon wearing the halo. You met the saint with blood on their hands. And somewhere in that collision, you stopped needing them to be anything other than what they are. That's when the real transformation happened. You became unpredictable. They can't map you anymore. The old buttons don't work. The guilt trips bounce off. The shame tactics short-circuit. You walk into rooms carrying a silence that makes people uncomfortable because silence is where their tricks die. You don't announce your strength. You don't explain your boundaries. You just enforce them quietly, precisely, like someone who knows exactly how far things can go before they snap. And deep down, they feel it, that ancestral dread, the kind their blood remembers from stories they never told out loud. Because immunity doesn't just protect you, it exposes them. When their poison fails, all that's left is their naked intent. And once you see that clearly, you can never unsee it. You're not angry like before. You're focused. You're not soft like before. You're intentional. You still have empathy, but it's disciplined now, weaponized restraint. You choose when to care. You choose when to engage. You choose when to disappear. That choice alone makes you lethal to systems built on control. They wonder why their words don't land, why their presence doesn't intimidate, why you don't chase, don't explain, don't beg. It's because you already paid the price. You already drank the worst they had to offer and lived. Your nervous system recalibrated, your mind rewired, your soul stopped asking for permission to exist. You became the anomaly their bloodline can't account for. And here's the part nobody warns them about. Immunity spreads differently. You don't poison others, you wake them up. People around you start questioning things. Patterns break, cycles stall. Their whispers lose power because truth has a way of getting louder when fear stops feeding it. You don't have to attack them, you just have to remain unchanged by their venom. That's the final insult. You're walking proof that their legacy is obsolete, that their generational curse met a nervous system it couldn't hijack, that their poison met a body designed to survive apocalypse-level betrayal and come back with clarity instead of bitterness. So stand there, calm, unrushed. Let them stare, let them scramble, let them wonder why nothing they throw at you sticks anymore. You drank the poison, and now you're immune to their entire bloodline. And they can feel it every time you don't react, every time you don't fall, every time you walk away intact. Like a quiet ending they never saw coming. And what really eats at them isn't that you survived. Survival, they can rationalize. They can tell themselves you got lucky, that time softened the blow, that you were stronger than expected. No, what eats at them is that you changed the rules. You didn't just crawl out alive. You came back calibrated. You came back with a nervous system that no longer panics when the air shifts, with eyes that catch micro-expressions before words form, with a silence that makes liars talk too much. They feel exposed around you now. That's why their energy gets strange. That's why conversations turn awkward. That's why they either overperform kindness or disappear completely. You're no longer reacting on instinct. You're responding from awareness. And awareness is the one thing poison can't touch. You see, poison relies on ignorance. It needs you unaware of what's being poured into you. It needs confusion, self-doubt, emotional hunger. That's why they targeted you in your most human moments, when you wanted connection, when you believed people meant what they said, when you thought love couldn't carry venom. They didn't attack your strength. They attacked your openness. And that's the cruel joke of it all. Your openness didn't kill you. Their poison taught you discernment. Now you don't close your heart. You guard it like a vault. You don't mistrust everyone. You read them. You don't harden into bitterness. You sharpen into precision. There's warmth in you still, but it's selective, earned, dangerous to take for granted. That duality, soft and lethal, compassionate and ruthless when necessary, that's what they can't replicate. Their bloodline only knows one mode: control through corrosion. You learned range. They try to provoke you now. Subtle jabs, backhanded compliments, revisionist history. They want to see if the old you is still buried somewhere they can dig up and bleed again. But the old you is gone, not dead, evolved, integrated. The wounds didn't vanish, they fused into insight. And insight doesn't scream, it watches. That's why you don't need revenge. Revenge is loud and sloppy. Immunity is quiet and permanent. You've noticed it, haven't you? How the same people who once dismissed you now monitor you. How your name lingers in rooms you're not in. How their stories about you keep changing, trying to land on a version that makes sense. But none of them stick. They can't label you anymore. Victim doesn't fit. Villain doesn't fit. Savior doesn't fit. You slip through every category they use to keep their world predictable. And unpredictability, real unpredictability, is power. You're not chaotic. You're unreadable. There's a difference. Chaos is uncontrolled. You are controlled to the point of flexibility. You can be still or explosive, present or gone, gentle or surgical. And because they don't know which version they'll get, they default to fear. Not loud fear, ancestral fear. The kind passed down in warning looks and sudden silence. Their system was designed for compliance. Yours was forged in exposure. Think about it. The poison was supposed to end you. Instead, it introduced you to yourself without illusions. It stripped away the need to be liked. It burned off the addiction to approval. It forced you to sit alone with your thoughts until you realized something terrifying and liberating. You can survive without their acceptance, without their praise, without their permission. That realization rewired you at a cellular level. Now when someone tries to guilt you, it feels clumsy. When someone tries to shame you, it feels outdated. When someone tries to threaten you with loss, you smile. Not because you're fearless, but because you remember what it took to survive the first time everything was taken from you emotionally. They can't recreate that environment. They already used their strongest weapon, and it didn't work. That's the part they never recover from, because bloodlines built on poison don't know how to adapt when the toxin stops working. They double down, they escalate, they turn on each other. You'll see it. Fractures in their alliances, desperation in their tone, mistakes they wouldn't have made before. Systems rot fastest when their core mechanism fails. And you just keep moving, not loudly, not dramatically, forward. You're not here to prove anything. Proof is for people still seeking validation. You're here to exist unchanged in environments designed to break you. That alone dismantles them. Every calm response is a mirror. Every boundary is a diagnosis. Every refusal to engage is a verdict. You didn't become heartless. You became unpoisonable. So let them whisper. Let them reminisce about who you used to be. Let them test the air around you, like predators, unsure if the prey is still prey. You know the truth now. Your body knows it. Your mind knows it. Your soul remembers the night you swallowed the venom and didn't die. You transmuted it. And from that moment on, their entire bloodline lost its grip on you. Not because you fought them, but because you outgrew the environment they needed you trapped in. That's not survival. That's evolution. And here's where it gets even darker, because immunity doesn't just change how they interact with you. It changes how reality does. Notice how chaos no longer knocks you off center the way it used to. Notice how moments that would have shattered you before now register as information, not emergencies. That's not numbness. That's mastery. Your nervous system learned the worst-case scenario and lived through it. So now when pressure rises, you don't panic. You get clearer, sharper. almost calm enough to scare people who still rely on drama to feel alive. They mistake that calm for weakness at first. That's always the first mistake. Because you're not calm due to comfort. You're calm because you've already been through psychological extinction-level events and came back with memory intact. You know what it feels like when the floor drops out. You know what betrayal sounds like in the voice of someone who swore loyalty. You know what it's like to question your own perception because someone else needed you, unsure to stay powerful, and you survived that. So when life throws new obstacles at you now, your system recognizes the pattern. Oh, this again. Not arrogance, recognition. You've been forged in an environment where trust was weaponized and love was conditional. That's why surface-level threats don't land. That's why intimidation feels theatrical. That's why emotional manipulation sounds like a cheap rerun. They're using tools from a world you no longer live in. You can see it in their eyes when they realize it. That moment when they try to hook you emotionally and nothing happens. No spike, no collapse, no over-explaining. Just a pause, a measured response, a boundary delivered without heat. That moment destabilizes them more than rage ever could, because rage tells them they still matter. Calm tells them they don't. That's when they start rewriting history. They'll say you were always like this, or you changed for the worse, or you think you're better than everyone now. Those narratives aren't about you. They're about self-preservation. When poison fails, the only thing left is distortion. They need to believe your immunity is arrogance because admitting its evolution would force them to confront their own stagnation. You didn't become cold. You became selective with your warmth. You didn't lose empathy. You learned who deserves access to it. You didn't stop caring. You stopped bleeding for people who drink it like medicine. That's the saint-psychopath paradox they can't reconcile. You can be deeply compassionate and absolutely unwilling to tolerate disrespect. You can understand someone's trauma and still walk away from their behavior. You can love from a distance. You can forgive without reconnection. You can see the wound without volunteering to be the bandage. That kind of clarity terrifies systems built on guilt and obligation. And here's the quiet truth they'll never admit. Your immunity exposes their dependency. They needed you reactive. They needed you doubting yourself. They needed you emotionally available without protection. Because their bloodline doesn't survive on strength. It survives on access. Access to your energy, your attention, your self-questioning. Once that access is revoked, their influence collapses. That's why they hover. That's why they watch. That's why they resurface at strange moments, testing to see if the door is still unlocked. It's not. You locked it without slamming it. And that restraint, that control, is what makes you dangerous now. You don't announce your growth. You don't threaten. You don't explain your silence. You simply move differently. Speak differently. Choose differently. And every choice you make without their input fractures the narrative they built around you. You're no longer predictable enough to manipulate, and no longer insecure enough to dominate. That's the real immunity. It's not that you can't be hurt anymore. It's that pain doesn't hijack you. It informs you. It refines you. It sharpens your discernment instead of dulling your spirit. You don't chase closure. You don't need apologies. You don't need them to understand. You understand yourself now. And once that happens, their poison has nowhere to go. So let them keep operating from old scripts. Let them keep assuming everyone can be controlled the same way. You are living proof that the cycle can be broken, not with violence, not with revenge, but with awareness so complete it becomes unshakable. You drank the poison they gave you. You let it test every part of you. And now your system recognizes it instantly. No matter whose hands it comes from, no matter what smile it's wrapped in, you're not bitter, you're immune. And immunity does something else they never planned for. It gives you time. Time to think before you speak. Time to observe before you move. Time to feel without drowning in the feeling. You're no longer living in reaction mode, no longer sprinting emotionally just to survive the next hit. You slowed down, and in that slowdown, you gained leverage. That's why your presence feels heavier now. Not louder, heavier. You walk into spaces carrying an invisible gravity because you're not leaking energy anymore. You're not explaining yourself into exhaustion. You're not fighting for your side of the story. People can sense when someone has already made peace with the worst outcome, and that terrifies anyone still clinging to control. They can't rush you. They can't bait you. They can't corner you with urgency. Urgency was always their favorite poison. Make you decide too fast, make you react emotionally, make you fear loss before you understand the game. But you already lost what mattered most once. Your innocence, your blind trust, your assumption that everyone plays clean. And when that died, something far more dangerous took its place. Patience. Now you let things unfold. You let people reveal themselves. You let silence do the interrogation. You let time expose motives better than confrontation ever could. And every time you don't react the way they expect, they give away more information. Every time you don't defend yourself, they expose their own insecurity. Every time you don't chase, they show you who was feeding on the chase. That's when you realized something brutal and freeing. Most poisoners are empty without a host. They don't know how to exist around someone who isn't hungry for approval. They don't know how to operate when shame doesn't land. They don't know how to threaten someone who's already made peace with walking away. Their power was never intrinsic. It was borrowed. Borrowed from your doubt. Borrowed from your empathy. Borrowed from your willingness to see the good, even when the evidence said otherwise. And now the loan is due. You didn't turn cruel. You turned precise. You don't waste words on people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't bleed explanations into ears that only listen for weakness. You don't perform goodness for an audience that confuses kindness with compliance. You still have a heart, but it's no longer public property. That's the angel-dark demon split they feel around you now. One moment you're calm, understanding, almost gentle. The next you're unreachable, unmovable, absolute in your boundaries. They can't tell which version they'll get, because both are real, and both answer to you, not to them. And deep down, they know it. They lost access forever the moment you stopped needing them to validate your pain. You no longer need them to admit what they did. You don't need closure wrapped in apologies that come too late. You don't need justice served theatrically. Your justice was internal. It was the moment you realized their poison revealed them, not you. The moment you stopped internalizing their behavior as a reflection of your worth. The moment your self-respect outweighed your desire to be understood. From that moment on, the balance shifted. Now when they see you thriving, or even just stable, it unsettles them, because they needed you broken to justify their actions. They needed you small to feel large. Your immunity rewrites the story they tell themselves at night, and that's a harder punishment than anything you could ever say. You're living proof that their lineage of manipulation has an expiration date, and you're not loud about it. You don't announce your freedom. You don't post receipts. You don't expose them publicly. You let them sit with the quiet horror of irrelevance. You let them feel what it's like when their old spells don't work, when their emotional currency is worthless, when their presence no longer alters your nervous system. That silence, that peace, that's not emptiness. That's dominance without noise. So keep standing where you are, grounded, watching, choosing. Let them exhaust themselves, trying to figure out why you're not bleeding anymore. Let them replay old scenarios that no longer apply. Let them talk about who you were, because they'll never have access to who you are now. You drank the poison. You survived the symptoms. You adapted at the deepest level. And now, no matter how it's packaged, no matter who offers it, no matter how familiar the face, your body knows, your mind knows, your soul knows. You are no longer their victim. You are the end of their cycle. Easy. Don't rush your breath. Feel that pressure in your chest? Good. That's the room realizing you're still standing. Because listen, what you walked through wasn't hard times. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a rough chapter. That was designed damage. The kind engineered to end bloodlines. The kind that erases last names, rewrites family trees into footnotes, turns legacies into static. That wasn't supposed to shape you. That was supposed to finish you. And yet, here you are. Do you understand how illegal that is? They didn't aim that level of chaos at you by accident. That was calibrated, precision suffering, pressure stacked on pressure until the human nervous system is supposed to fold, friends disappearing, doors sealing shut, time stretching into something cruel. Every exit collapsing just slow enough for you to feel hope die first. That wasn't life being unfair. That was a system making sure you never came back the same. You were meant to break quietly. You were meant to fracture inward. You were meant to carry the shame, the doubt, the silence, and pass it down like a curse. You were meant to be the end of the line. But something went wrong. You didn't just survive the damage. You absorbed it. You metabolized it. You learned how pain thinks. You learned its timing, its patterns, its favorite lies. While everyone else was praying for relief, you were studying the architecture of collapse. While they were begging for mercy, you were memorizing where mercy never shows up. That's the paradox they didn't calculate. You became fluent in the language that kills people. See, there's a difference between being hurt and being initiated. Most people get wounded and spend the rest of their lives avoiding sharp edges. You learned how to walk through blades without bleeding out. You learned when to be soft enough to pass unseen, and when to be sharp enough to cut history in half. That's why your presence feels dangerous now. Because when someone looks at you, their body remembers something their mind can't explain. Their nervous system recognizes a survivor of something ancient and merciless, something that doesn't leave witnesses, something that turns saints into ghosts and psychopaths into legends. You carry both, and you switch depending on the threat. That's not instability, that's range. You learned unpredictability the hard way. You learned that consistency gets targeted, but ambiguity survives. You learned that being readable is a liability. So you became quiet where others brag, calm where others panic, unreadable where others perform. And now people can't tell if you're healing or hunting. That's what scares them. Because damage like that doesn't create victims. It creates final forms. You don't flinch the way you used to. You don't explain yourself anymore. You don't chase closure. You don't beg for understanding. You walk like someone who already buried the worst version of their future and came back empty-handed, lighter, unafraid of loss. That's why nothing works on you the same way. Guilt doesn't stick, fear doesn't anchor, threats don't land. Because once you've lived through something meant to erase your bloodline, everything else feels negotiable, temporary, small. They thought that level of damage would make you fold into silence. Instead, it taught you timing. When to disappear, when to speak, when to let the room underestimate you, when to let them think you're done. You're not loud because you don't need to be. You're not reckless because you already paid the price of chaos in advance. You don't rush because you understand inevitability. You don't threaten because your existence already answers the question. That's the evolution nobody warns them about. Pain didn't harden you. It upgraded you. It stripped away everything ornamental. It burned off the need for applause, approval, permission. It left behind something lean, patient, surgical, something that doesn't announce itself, something that doesn't seek revenge because it understands trajectory. You're not here to prove anything. You're here because you couldn't be erased. And now every step you take rewrites the math they trusted. Every calm reaction invalidates the narrative they built about you. Every quiet win adds weight to the unspoken truth. Whatever was supposed to end, you only taught you how endings work. That's why they hesitate now. Because when someone survives what was meant to end bloodlines, they stop being predictable. They stop being containable. They stop being safe to underestimate. They don't move like prey anymore. They move like aftermath. And the scariest part? You're not done evolving, because once you cross a certain threshold of damage, something irreversible happens inside you. The part of you that begged for fairness dies first. Then the part that needed reassurance follows. And what's left is terrifyingly calm. You start to see the world differently after that. You don't see people as good or bad anymore. You see pressure responses. You see who panics when the room tightens. You see who turns cruel when they're afraid. You see who freezes, who performs, who betrays quietly to save themselves. And most of all, you see who's never been tested enough to matter. That's why conversations feel slower now. That's why drama feels childish. That's why threats sound hollow. You've already been inside a scenario where nothing was promised. Not safety, not justice, not survival. And you walked out anyway. Do you realize what that does to your posture, to your eyes, to the way silence bends around you? People sense it before they understand it. Something in them clocks the fact that you've already died once and kept going. That you've already lost what most people are terrified to lose. That leverage doesn't work on someone like that. Fear doesn't land the same. Control tactics slide right off. That's why they get uneasy around you. You don't react the way they expect. You don't explode when provoked. You don't collapse when cornered. You don't scramble for validation when ignored. You watch, you wait. You let time do what time always does to people who underestimate forces they don't understand. Because you learned something in that damage, something they never had to learn. You learned that survival isn't loud. It's precise. It's knowing when to disappear long enough for the narrative to rot. It's knowing when to speak one sentence that lands harder than 1,000 arguments. It's knowing when to let someone think they won, so they walk exactly where you needed them to. You didn't become cold. You became selective. And that's the saint-psychopath paradox they can't categorize. You can be merciful without being weak. You can be ruthless without being cruel. You can protect what matters and burn what threatens it without losing sleep over either. That balance only comes from walking through hell without outsourcing your decisions. You were supposed to inherit fear. Instead, you inherited clarity. You know now that pain is a teacher that never lies. It doesn't care about your excuses or your image or your intentions. It strips everything down to function. And you adapted. Not by becoming harder, but by becoming smarter, quieter, more exact. That's why your energy feels different now. It's not chaotic. It's contained, like something heavy sitting still, daring gravity to test it. People mistake that stillness for peace. It's not peace. It's readiness. You understand consequences now. Not in theory, but in your bones. You know what it costs to miscalculate. You know what happens when you trust the wrong silence, the wrong smile, the wrong promise. So you move like someone who already paid tuition in blood and memory. And that makes you dangerous in a way they can't defend against. Because you don't need to dominate rooms. You don't need to be right out loud. You don't need to expose everything you see. You let people reveal themselves while thinking they're in control. You let systems run until their flaws surface naturally. You don't interrupt collapse. You let it complete. That's what happens when someone survives. Damage meant to end bloodlines. They stop rushing outcomes. They stop forcing proof. They stop needing witnesses. They understand that inevitability doesn't need applause. And the ones who sense this in you, they feel it as a threat without a shape. They can't explain why your name makes them pause. They can't articulate why your presence shifts the temperature. They just know something about you doesn't obey the usual rules. Because you're not operating on hope anymore. You're operating on experience. You've seen how fast safety evaporates. You've seen how thin loyalty gets under pressure. You've seen how morality bends when survival is on the line. And instead of becoming bitter, you became aware. Awareness changes everything. It makes you patient. It makes you observant. It makes you impossible to gaslight. You don't argue with reality. You read it. You don't chase reassurance. You track patterns. You don't need to be believed. You wait to be proven right. And that's why your evolution scares people more than your anger ever could. Because anger can be provoked. Ego can be baited. Trauma can be exploited. But someone who's already integrated their worst experiences, someone who's made peace with the fact that they survived something meant to erase them, that person can't be controlled the usual way. You don't fear losing everything anymore, because you already did once in some form, and lived. And that makes every threat smaller than it sounds, every ultimatum weaker than it looks, every intimidation tactic late to the party. They're trying to scare a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. The old you would have flinched. The old you would have explained. The old you would have asked why. This version just watches and adjusts. You're not haunted by what you went through. You carry it. Like a quiet weapon, like a private code, like proof that you're not theoretical anymore. You're tested, and the truth they don't want to say out loud. Nothing scares a system more than someone who survived its most lethal setting and came back fluent in its failures. Because when you survive something designed to erase you, you don't just come back changed. You come back unhooked from the old rules. The rules that say you're supposed to seek comfort. The rules that say you're supposed to soften. The rules that say after enough damage, a person begs to be normal again. You didn't beg. You adapted. And adaptation at that level doesn't look human to people who've never been pushed there. You stopped expecting the world to make sense. You stopped believing effort guarantees reward. You stopped confusing kindness with safety. That doesn't make you cynical, it makes you accurate. You see the difference between words and behavior instantly now. You hear what isn't being said. You notice delays, hesitations, patterns that most people miss because they're too busy hoping. Hope used to be your fuel. Now it's data. That's why you don't rush to trust. You don't rush to love. You don't rush to react. You let things unfold long enough to reveal their true shape. You let people show you who they are when there's nothing to gain. When pressure rises, when nobody's watching. And what you learned in that damage, what rewired you permanently, is that most things in this world are performances. Morality is a costume. Loyalty is conditional. Confidence is borrowed. Stability is rented. You stopped renting. You built something internal that doesn't collapse when external structures fail. That's the angel-demon contradiction they feel around you. You can be compassionate without being naive. You can understand pain without excusing behavior. You can forgive without forgetting. You can love deeply and still walk away without pleading. That balance is unsettling because it means you're not driven by impulse anymore. You're driven by thresholds. You know exactly how much disrespect you tolerate, exactly how much chaos you allow, exactly how much silence is too much. And once that line is crossed, something in you shuts a door permanently, without drama, without speeches, without closure ceremonies. People expect explosions. They don't expect finality. That's why the damage you walked through didn't hollow you out. It gave you gravity. When you speak now, people listen even when you're quiet. When you leave a room, the absence lingers longer than your presence ever did before. When you decide something internally, the outside world eventually catches up whether it wants to or not. Because you stopped negotiating with reality. You don't ask life to be fair. You ask it to be honest. And honesty, at that level, is a weapon most people can't withstand. You know how fragile systems really are. How quickly authority dissolves without belief. How fast respect evaporates when fear is exposed. How narratives collapse the moment someone refuses to play their assigned role. You refused. That's why they tried to overwhelm you. That's why the damage came layered, relentless, personal. That's why it hit relationships, finances, identity, time itself. They weren't just trying to hurt you. They were trying to confuse you, trying to scatter your sense of self so badly you'd never reassemble it. They failed. You reassembled yourself with intention. You kept the parts that work under pressure. You discarded the parts that needed applause. You kept your intuition sharp. You sharpened your discernment. You hardened your boundaries. You softened only where softness was a choice, not a weakness. That's evolution through pain, and it changes how you move through the world. You don't chase chaos anymore. You let it expose itself. You don't prove your strength. You let time demonstrate it. You don't need to dominate. You understand leverage. Leverage is knowing that once you've survived annihilation-level damage, everything else is just a scenario. And scenarios can be navigated. That's why threats don't shake you. That's why disrespect doesn't bait you. That's why silence doesn't starve you. You've already been alone in the worst way and discovered something most people never do. You're enough without the noise. You don't need constant reassurance. You don't need to be seen every second. You don't need to explain your past to justify your present. You carry proof in your posture, in your pacing, in the way you don't flinch when tension spikes. You've seen worse. And the scariest part, for them, is that you didn't come out vengeful. You came out clear. Clear about what matters, clear about who stays, clear about what you'll never tolerate again, clear about the fact that you don't owe the world access to the version of you it tried to destroy. They thought that level of damage would make you desperate for safety. It made you sovereign. You don't cling anymore. You choose. You don't chase stability. You create it internally. You don't need certainty. You function in ambiguity better than most people function in comfort. That's why your existence disrupts fragile egos and brittle systems. Because you're living proof that their worst-case scenario didn't work. That their ultimate deterrent failed. That someone can walk through something meant to end bloodlines and come out with sharper vision, steadier hands, and a quieter, more dangerous calm. You are not the aftermath they planned for. You are the variable they can't reverse. And whether they admit it or not, every time they see you still moving, still adapting, still intact, they're reminded of a truth they hate. Some damage doesn't end you. It finishes you. And once you're finished like that, once the excess is burned off, once the illusions are gone, you stop mistaking noise for power. You stop mistaking movement for progress. You stop mistaking approval for safety. You learn something colder, cleaner, far more effective. You learn control without display. You don't announce your shifts anymore. You don't warn people when access is being revoked. You don't dramatize your exits. You let things starve naturally. Attention dries up. Influence fades. Relevance erodes. And by the time anyone realizes what happened, it's already irreversible. That's not cruelty. That's efficiency. Because you understand something now that most people never touch. Pain doesn't just change what you feel. It rewrites how you calculate. You no longer make decisions from desire. You make them from pattern recognition. You don't move because you're emotional. You move because the trajectory is obvious. And when the trajectory is obvious, hesitation disappears. That's why your calm unnerves people. They're used to seeing damage turn into desperation, anger, chaos. They expect you to lash out, to prove yourself, to self-destruct in a way that confirms their worldview. You didn't give them that relief. You became unreadable. They can't tell if you're healing or planning. They can't tell if you're done or just getting started. They can't tell if your silence means forgiveness or something far worse for them. And that uncertainty eats at them. Because they know, on some level, they participated in a system, a moment, a pressure sequence that was supposed to end you. They know they watched the weight pile on and assumed gravity would finish the job. They know they turned away, stayed quiet, or added one more stone to the load. And now you're still here, still functional, still precise, still evolving. That forces a reckoning they didn't prepare for. You don't need to confront them. You don't need to expose them. You don't need revenge arcs or dramatic justice. Your continued existence is already the indictment. Every boundary you enforce is a reminder. Every upgrade you integrate is evidence. You're not loud about it because loudness would cheapen it. You understand timing now. You understand that the most devastating outcomes don't arrive with sirens. They arrive slowly, quietly, inevitably, like rock in a foundation, like a shift in climate, like a name that stops getting invited, then stops getting answered, then stops being remembered. You learned that lesson in the damage. You learned how endings actually work. That's why you don't rush closure. You let people sit in unresolved tension. You let them replay interactions in their head, wondering where things changed, what they missed when you became different. You let them feel the absence of access without explaining why it's gone. That kind of silence teaches better than any speech ever could. And here's the part they really can't stomach. You didn't lose your humanity in the process. You refined it. You can still be gentle. You can still be warm. You can still be deeply present with the few who earn it. But now that warmth is intentional, now that access is selective, now that presence is a privilege, not a default, you don't bleed for crowds anymore. You don't sacrifice yourself for narratives that don't protect you. You learned, through annihilation-level pressure, that not everyone deserves the same version of you. That giving everything to everyone is not virtue. It's self-erasure. And you already walked through what erasure feels like. You won't volunteer for it again. That's why your energy feels heavier now. Not darker, denser. Like something compressed by impossible force and held together anyway. People feel it when you enter a space. They can't name it, but they adjust. Voices lower, postures shift, jokes soften. Your presence recalibrates rooms. Not because you dominate, but because you don't need to. You survived something meant to end bloodlines, and that rewired your relationship with fear permanently. Fear doesn't lead you anymore. It reports to you. It informs you. It sharpens you. It doesn't control you.